What does life look like when money isn't something you count, but something you simply assume will always be there? When price tags don't trigger hesitation, budgets don't exist, and the idea of too expensive quietly disappears from your vocabulary. That's the reality surrounding Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar, a man whose personal wealth is estimated at over $2 billion, backed by a family fortune hovering around a staggering $335 billion. At that level, money stops being a tool for comfort and becomes something closer to gravity, invisible, constant, and impossible to escape. Sheikh Tamim isn't just rich in the way celebrities or tech founders are rich. His wealth operates on an entirely different plane. This isn't about earning, saving, or investing wisely. This is generational, sovereign-level money, the kind tied to natural resources, state power, and global influence. While most people think of wealth as something you build over time, for him, it's something he was born into and now commands. The difference matters, because it shapes a lifestyle where limits are theoretical, not practical. Take his superyacht, Al Lusail. At 123 meters long, roughly 404 feet, it's less a boat and more a floating palace. With an estimated price tag of $500 million, Al Lusail costs more than entire luxury hotels, and that's before factoring in the eye-watering annual operating costs, which exceed $50 million every single year. That's just to keep it running. Fuel, crew, maintenance, security, the kind of expenses that would bankrupt corporations are simply the background noise of ownership here. For Sheikh Tamim, this yacht isn't a splurge. It's infrastructure. On board, privacy isn't a feature, it's the entire point. Superyachts like Al Lusail are designed to be self-contained worlds. They move when the owner wants, stop where the owner decides, and answer to no one else. No crowds. No cameras. No schedules. While most people dream of escaping daily life for a vacation, Sheikh Tamim brings his entire world with him, staff, security, luxury, and silence, wherever he goes. Then there's the air. Commercial flights operate on fixed timetables, shared cabins, and security lines. Sheikh Tamim doesn't exist in that system. His fleet of private jets, including multiple Boeing business jets, turns the sky into another private domain. These aircraft aren't just transportation, they're flying command centers, customized to the same standards as his palaces on land. When he travels, borders blur. Time zones bend. The inconvenience that defines modern travel simply doesn't apply. On the ground, the scale only increases. The Qatari royal family owns numerous palatial residences, with Al Rayyan Palace standing as a prime example. These aren't homes in the traditional sense. They're compounds, sprawling estates filled with marble floors, gold detailing, crystal chandeliers, private cinemas, helipads, and rooms most people will never see or enter. Entire teams exist solely to maintain spaces that may only be used a few times a year. When space and labor are unlimited, efficiency becomes irrelevant. What's striking is how normalized all of this becomes at that level. A palace with a private cinema isn't considered extravagant, it's expected. A yacht that burns millions in fuel isn't outrageous, it's standard. The psychological shift is subtle but profound. When every desire can be fulfilled instantly, luxury stops feeling special. It becomes the baseline. Excess turns into routine. This environment reshapes how value itself is perceived. For most people, wealth is about security, paying bills, owning a home, maybe traveling comfortably. For Sheikh Tamim, wealth is about control. Control over movement, over privacy, over time. It allows him to exist outside the systems that govern everyday life. Airports, hotels, public venues, these are optional inconveniences, not necessities. And this lifestyle didn't appear overnight. It's the result of decades of accumulation, strategic positioning, and state-backed power. His father, the former Emir Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, was known for an equally extravagant lifestyle, setting the tone for what wealth meant within the family. Massive art collections, fleets of jets, indulgence without apology, the message was clear early on, restraint was never part of the plan. At this altitude of wealth, money no longer functions as a measuring stick. It doesn't define success or failure. It simply exists, flowing quietly in the background while decisions are made on an entirely different scale. The question isn't can we afford it, but does it serve our interests? And that's where the story truly begins. Because as impressive as the yachts, jets, and palaces are, they're only the visible surface. Beneath them lies a far more powerful form of wealth, one that doesn't float on water or soar through the sky, but embeds itself into cities, markets, and institutions across the world. What do you buy when you already have the yachts, the jets, the palaces, and the privacy? When another luxury item doesn't move the needle anymore, and comfort has long since stopped being a goal. At that level, wealth stops chasing pleasure and starts quietly chasing influence. This is where Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's world becomes less visible and far more powerful. One of the most telling places this influence shows up is in art. Sheikh Tamim is widely regarded as one of the most important art collectors on the planet, not because he talks about it, but because of what he owns. Works like Paul Cézanne's The Card Players aren't just paintings, they're cultural trophies. Pieces like that don't hang on walls for decoration. They function as vaults of value, objects so rare and desirable that they transcend markets. While stocks fluctuate and currencies wobble, masterpieces like these sit quietly, appreciating, untouchable and unquestioned. Art at this level is about permanence. Museums borrow. Billionaires collect. When a single painting is worth hundreds of millions, it becomes a form of soft power, prestige that can't be replicated or mass-produced. Owning such works places Sheikh Tamim and his family not just among the wealthy, but among the cultural gatekeepers of the world. It's wealth that whispers instead of shouting. Then there's real estate, not houses, but landmarks. Through the Qatari royal family's investment arms, they hold stakes in some of the most recognizable properties on earth. London's Shard, Harrods, the Empire State Building. These aren't indulgences or trophies in the traditional sense. They're symbols woven directly into the global economy. Millions of people interact with these assets every year without ever realizing who truly sits behind them. This is ownership without visibility. No name on the front door. No headlines announcing control. Just quiet integration into the infrastructure of major cities. While public figures debate policy and politics, this level of wealth simply positions itself inside the system, immune to elections, trends, or public opinion. It doesn't need to be liked. It only needs to endure. Even personal luxuries follow the same pattern. Sheikh Tamim's reported automotive collection, vast, exclusive, and constantly rotating, isn't about attachment. Cars aren't cherished possessions when they can be replaced instantly. They're tools, accessories, symbols used and discarded without sentiment. At this level, ownership doesn't imply emotional value. It implies availability. And this mindset extends to family and legacy. Sheikh Tamim has 13 children with 3 wives, ensuring that this wealth isn't concentrated in a single lifetime. It's structured to compound, to spread, to persist. The goal isn't to be rich today. It's to remain untouchable tomorrow. Every palace, every asset, every acquisition feeds into that long-term continuity. Much of this philosophy traces back to his father, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. The former emir was known for an unapologetically extravagant lifestyle, massive art collections, private jets, and indulgence that set the tone for modern Qatari royalty. He didn't just accumulate wealth, he normalized excess within the family. Under his leadership, luxury wasn't something to justify. It was something to assume. That upbringing matters. Because when excess is normalized, ambition shifts. The pursuit isn't more money, it's broader reach. Influence without exposure. Power without friction. At this altitude, the goal is insulation, from volatility, from criticism, from consequence. The systems that constrain normal life simply don't apply. This is the paradox of extreme wealth. From the outside, it looks loud, gold, marble, jets, yachts. But at its most effective, it becomes almost invisible. It embeds itself in institutions, culture, and geography. It stops announcing itself and starts shaping outcomes. That's why headlines about multi-billion-pound spending barely scratch the surface. Whether it's £4 billion here or $500 million there is almost irrelevant. These numbers don't represent risk. They represent positioning. When your family fortune rivals nations, expenditure isn't a decision, it's a statement of intent. In the end, Sheikh Tamim's lifestyle isn't just about living well. It's about existing outside the boundaries that define everyone else's reality. When money stops meaning anything, it's no longer about luxury. It's about leverage. And once you have that, you don't need the world to notice, because, quietly, you already own a piece of it.